Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Accessibility Learning webinar series. I'm so excited to have you back. My name's Crystal Jones. I help support our Disability Answer Desk team, and I'm super excited to be hosting the webinar today. You have joined our first in a series of webinars. This one will cover Windows 11 and be an accessibility overview. We have two awesome presenters today that I will toss over to in a few minutes. One, Hector Minto, who's out in the field working with our enterprise customers on accessibility every day, and Jeremy Curry, who's recently joined the Enterprise Disability Answer Desk team and comes from Windows Engineering. Before I toss over to you guys, I just want to let everybody know we will definitely have time for lots of Q&A toward the end of the webinar. So if you have any questions that pop up as the demos are going, drop those. You can send an email to AccessibilityWebinars, there's an S on the end of that, at Microsoft.com. Or you can definitely just throw it on Twitter. We've got a hashtag that we're following, AccessibilityWebinar. So feel free to just ask your questions over email or Twitter, and we'll be looking out for those so we can ask the presenter some questions at the end. So let me go ahead and let's just jump in and get started. Go for it, Hector.
Thanks, Crystal. Good evening from the UK. My name is Hector Minto. I'm the lead accessibility evangelist for Microsoft. I spend a lot of time with our customers, our partners, the community, governments, talking about how technology has to empower every person on the planet. It's critically important when we think about digital transformation that we make sure that we're doing this with accessibility in mind. It's no longer good enough to build a system that does not include the 1 in 6 people on the planet with a disability. So I'm delighted to be joining you for this webinar this evening, hopefully able to share some anecdotes, some tips from the field, some customer stories as we go along. And I'm delighted to be joined by my colleague, my co-host, Jeremy. Hey, Jeremy.
Hey, Hector. I am Jeremy Curry. I am on the Enterprise Disability Answer Desk, or EDAD for short. It's kind of a newer role for me. And prior to that, I was on the Windows Empower team, which covers Windows accessibility. So a lot of the stuff that you see today, I was directly involved with. I was able to use my lived experience, as we'll talk about after a little bit, to really help refine this version of Windows for people with disabilities. It's just awesome to be here. I am stateside, so it's afternoon for me. And yeah, Hector, on over back to you.
So just going to share our slides at this point, and just quickly click here. Yeah, Microsoft's mission is to empower every person, every organization on the planet to achieve more. People, I think, understand that this is a kind of an outward-focused Microsoft. We're focusing on how we want to kind of empower every organization, every person working within those organizations to be included. And when we were thinking about the evolution of Windows, moving to Windows 11, I don't know if anyone picked up on it, but in a lot of the videos, we were talking about the most inclusively designed version of Windows. Jeremy, as somebody who was directly involved in the engineering, what did that mean to you?
Yeah, this is really key to Windows 11, especially for all people with disabilities. I myself am low vision / functionally blind, depending on the environment. I'm light sensitive, so I wear sunglasses all of the time. So I even have them on right now, just looking at the screen. And light sensitivity is something that we really took into consideration with Windows 11, in addition to many other types of things. So when we were working on accessibility, we came in right at the ground level in terms of framework and how do we design these things, and work directly with the design team. It was great as a person who has light sensitivity and is low vision, and again, who is sometimes functionally blind, to be able to work directly in that process so we can influence everybody that uses Windows 11. I've been at Microsoft now for about 3 years. And prior to this, I have been at multiple assistive technology companies. And one of the things that used to happen when Windows came out was that us as AT providers, we would have to go back to Microsoft and say, well, this and this and this and this needs fixed. And as we've been going through and designing and reviewing and refining Windows 11 before it shipped, we were able to fix a lot of those things that in years past would have had to go on to third-party AT providers. So for me, it's really cool to see all of this stuff come out of the gate and used lived experiences from people like myself and others, all part of this process, building this most inclusively designed version of Windows.
I remember those times as well. I mean, I spent 20 years working in the assistive technology world, and every time there was a kind of any kind of upgrade or specifically a change in the operating system, that was a moment where we kind of, took a breath, right, Jeremy?
Yeah.
Thought, hopefully we're going to be okay. But because it was always felt as like a bolt-on. Yeah, it was like we kind of get there afterwards. I think this is exactly the way we need to be working. Designing with user perspective right from the get-go. I just wanted to share my first impressions of Windows 11. I got on the insider build about a month before release, and I kind of almost deliberately stayed away from it a little bit because I just wanted to see kind of the final versions. A few things that absolutely stuck out for me. Ease of access center is gone, right? It's now accessibility. And accessibility is consistently delivered as a brand almost through the operating system and into Office and into Edge.
Yep.
So I've got some icons up on the screen here. The top one is how accessibility looks right in the start menu. The next one below it is how the accessibility settings are in Edge. In Office, we've got here make Outlook more accessible, and we've still got that icon of the little person with the arms out. And then the live accessibility checking in Office also uses this term accessibility. So rather than kind of create this confusion between ease of access center and accessibility and what we mean by it, I think we're going to see this much more consistent approach. Everybody is going to be delivering Xbox consistently across Microsoft now. And the second thing was, and honestly, it was like a moment of delight, was the Action Center, the desktop. So I'm going to switch to that now and share this. But right there, Windows key A, well, let me just get rid of this a moment. Windows key A into the Action Center. You'll see that accessibility is right here now, next to your Wi-Fi, right? Next to your Bluetooth, next to your VPN, next to your notifications, your brightness and your volume. Right there, we've got accessibility. That's a massive moment for us all, isn't it, Jeremy?
Yeah, one of the things that we hear quite often from customers is they'll say, hey, could you put this feature inside of Windows? And we'll sometimes say, well, it's already there. And it didn't necessarily help to have more accessibility features if you couldn't discover them. And so this was one of the ways that we could increase discoverability is by putting this right here inside of the Action Center. And as Hector noted, we changed from what used to be called ease of access to accessibility. And we did that because people would say ease of access, like ease of access to what? Like when they would do user research, that's what we would hear back. And accessibility is now the standard term. It's now got a person icon instead of the small little wheelchair icon that used to be there. So it's much more inclusive. Again, going back to that idea of the most inclusively designed version of Windows, all the way from the out-of-the-box experience, which we call OOBE for short, OOBE. And as soon as you start your Windows 11 machine, you'll have accessibility right there with this brand new icon rebranded. And it's just so nice to see this across the system. Much easier to understand, much more discoverable for customers. And for even just the person who may not identify as somebody with a disability, but could benefit from things that are in accessibility, it's super easy to find because as soon as they even want to change their volume or basically any task that's kind of the base, like connect to Wi-Fi, right? It's right there up in front and center for them to see.
Yeah, one of the biggest challenges, I work with some of the biggest employers in the world. I work with governments, I work with the job centers and the work coaches across the world. And sometimes we show features that have been around since Windows 95, right? Like sticky keys and like the jaw drops. They're like, wow, you can type one-handed in Windows? And you just sit there and think, oh, the challenge is not always the technology. The challenge is the discoverability. That is key, to where we need to be with accessibility. It should be. I don't know if you remember back in when we were talking about accessibility checker in Office, but it used to be file, inspect document, check for accessibility. Then we moved it to the review tab, and the global use of the accessibility checker rocketed. It went up like 5x, right? We need to do the same with Windows accessibility. You shouldn't be searching for features. You should be exposed to features, and this was part of the design process, right?
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. Again, discoverability, very, very key. And when we talk about this most inclusive version of Windows, not only does it come from the rebrand of accessibility, but Hector, it even comes from the sounds, right?
Well, you're going to have to cover me for a moment, Jeremy, while I quickly reshare my sound. Something's gone wrong on my end. So if you could just quickly talk a bit more about this, I'm going to unshare, reshare, and hopefully our sound comes back. Give me a second.
Yeah, sure. No problem. It's wonderful when we're doing things live. It always happens during demos. So the entire Windows 11 interface has basically been changed and redesigned so that it's very, and not only is it visually beautiful and visually inclusive, but even from the audible side of things, where people who may not be able to see like me or people who are totally blind just have these better sounds, but they also impact everybody. Whenever we do inclusive design, it impacts everybody. So Hector, why don't you show us some of those like old sounds versus new sounds?
Yeah, beautifully covered, Jeremy. I loved it. So hopefully the audio is sharing, but essentially I'm going to play a few Windows 10 sounds followed by some Windows 11 sounds, and just confirm for me, Jeremy, that they're coming across to you. So I'll play the connect sound for Windows 10 first. Hearing that?
Yep, sure am.
And here's the new sound. So I'll replay that one. Here's connect Windows 10. Oh no, that was connect. That was the reconnect. That's Windows 11. Okay, let's move to the disconnect sound, Windows 10. And then the new sound. It's just a softer tone. Yeah, it's a much softer tone, but it's still discernible. You still understand the meaning. Here's the default beep, Windows 10, followed by Windows 11. You see, it's just a bit more relaxing. I'll tell you, I hear those new sounds now and I feel great every day. Here's the old notification and the new one. Softer, more calming.
You know, I didn't know the old sounds agitated me until we had the new sounds. And then
right. Yeah. You know when you have like that faulty USB and it's like disconnect, reconnect, and like I hear that now and it just absolutely gets me every time. And now I just think, feel a little bit calmer now listening. Here's default mail old, followed by default mail new. And the user account alert, old and new. So a lot of thought went into this, right, Jeremy, the sound profiles?
A lot of thought went into the sound profiles to make them much easier and calmer. And when we look at just Windows 11 overall, the thought was to make it easy and calm. And I don't know about you, but over the last 18 months or so, I could use some calm in my life.
Calm and reassuring.
Yeah, calm and reassuring. It's that's a great point because yet Windows is still familiar, right? That was one of the things that went into sound. And even if you were changing from light mode to dark mode, well, why should people who can't see the screen be restricted to not having that same experience? So if you are in light mode, you hear one set of sounds. If you are in dark mode, you hear the dark mode set of sounds. You get to experience it even if you can't see the screen. And what that means for everybody else who maybe is fully sighted and has full hearing is they've got the ability to experience it from multiple avenues, not just visually, but also from the audible side.
I think it's also this trend that we're starting to see where we don't just design around disability and function, but we design around just beauty and delight, right? Why shouldn't we be designing delightful experiences when it comes to accessibility?
Exactly. And so one of the things that people who are sighted will notice immediately is that if you open up the start menu is now right at the center of the screen. Again, putting you in control of everything that you can see is right there. Same with the taskbar. It's very nice and centered, so it doesn't feel like, it's over here, it's over there. And for those of you who have been used to, muscle memory of going down to the bottom left, like, don't worry, you can change it back to that if you'd like to have it. But again, this whole feeling of calm and ease and being in control of the start menu and the other pieces of the UI are very important. And then if we look at the different themes, again, when we talk about inclusive, there are various themes that we have inside of Windows, just built in. We mentioned dark themes and we mentioned light themes. And so we've got 6 different built-in themes that are there by default, so that we got the ability to say, okay, here's a light theme, which is not one that I would pick because I'm light sensitive. I'm one of the 12% of the global population that's light sensitive, because we have various conditions that cause light sensitivity across the planet, including not only vision loss, but things like traumatic brain injuries. And so it was important to have these dark themes as well. So you've got these light themes, you've got these dark themes, again, all very inclusive. And so even if you're, again, somebody who does not identify as somebody with a disability, maybe you're sitting in bed at night, you just want the light really low because it hurts your eyes there. You wouldn't necessarily think of yourself as someone who's light sensitive, but there is a measurable bit of light sensitivity there. And so we've got these dark themes also included. And right from the get-go, you can do this. And I had the honor of being able to work with several of the Windows 11 designers, which was just an absolute pleasure. And what we'd like to do for you now is play a video of those Windows 11 designers to get their perspective of what it was like to go through and make this most inclusive version of Windows 11.
John.
We certainly hear that there are things that we can do better and gaps that we need to close.
Giving a presentation.
We don't just want to stop there. We want to really push beyond closing gaps to delivering that delight across the board.
Natasha, designer.
No matter what your abilities are, to be able to use Windows like everyone else.
Juan.
Accessibility on Windows used to be called ease of access.
A settings menu.
We talked to people in our research studies and we're like, do you know what this means? And people were like, no, I don't know.
Carolina.
One of the things that we did is we changed the icon.
Julia.
And the most important thing is that people could discover the things that would help them use Windows better.
Typing on a laptop.
You can't just go into it assuming you know who you're designing for.
In the accessibility community, there is a saying, nothing about us without us.
John uses a wheelchair.
The only way to solve these problems is by integrating deeply with the community of people that we're trying to serve.
We heard that contrast themes were kind of like a hammer.
The aesthetics shouldn't have to be compromised just because you are someone who has light sensitivity.
A screen goes from black to white.
We are introducing them with new, beautiful colorways, a range of different contrast intensities.
From blue on gray to yellow
We
on
thought
black.
about, hey, there's a student who might have light sensitivity in a classroom and there's a cart of machines, and when they boot up, does their device look different than others?
We don't want accessibility to be an othering experience.
Windows 11 Startup.
What's really unique about the startup sound, for some people with no vision, that's what they rely on to know that the computer's awake.
The difference between the sounds is that they will follow the visual personality of Windows. So a person who is blind can actually enjoy the same difference of those light and dark themes audibly.
It's really humbling to be able to see the impact that we're going to have in people's lived experiences.
Carolina smiles.
When someone with a disability starts using this new version of Windows, I hope that they feel a sense of belonging.
Windows. Microsoft.
It was just such an honor to work with all of those designers, just some fantastic people who really put their heart into this stuff. You don't always get to see the people behind the product. And one of the things that Panos Panay says is that products are a reflection of the people who make them. And there's a lot of people with some real heart on this team and real passion that goes into this. I'm just humbling to be a part of this. So when we talk more about accessibility, just like John said at the end, we don't want it to be an othering experience. We also don't want it to be so unfamiliar that you have no idea how to use it. So while we've replaced ease of access with the term accessibility in terms of the rebranding, we've still kept things very familiar. For example, if you were using ease of access previously, you would press, or one of the ways you could look for it is by pressing the Windows key U. And guess what? Windows key U still works. It takes you right to this accessibility main page that we're going to bring up. And once we're on that accessibility main page, we're going to see the various options that are available to us for the types of the accessibility that we have. So let's maximize this accessibility window. There we go. And you can see, I should say, if you are sighted, you can see that at the top, we've got vision, and then there is a group of elements for vision. Below that, there's hearing and several for hearing. And below that, there's interaction, and then several elements for interaction. We're going to look at some of the things for vision, but the very first one I just want to note quickly, we're not going to go into it just yet, but it's something called contrast themes. You just heard Joanne talk about changing high contrast. You'll notice that we no longer have anything here that says high contrast. This is non-stigmatizing. It's contrast themes. Anybody can use it, not just somebody who needs high contrast. Let's talk about text size, which is at the very top. So text size is something that anybody can use. And as Hector moves his slide here, you'll see the preview change. And what happens once he clicks the apply button is there will be a small screen curtain that'll actually then come up and say, please wait. And eventually when it comes back, you'll be able to see that the text has changed. Now, if we take that window, that accessibility window, and put it into a restored state or a non-maximized state, if we were to take the mouse pointer or keyboard and resize it in any way, you can actually see the text reflow on the screen so that it doesn't become clipped and unable to see things. In fact, even when it's all the way to the left, you're still able to access what's called the left pane or the left panel on this particular thing. And as you're going up and down through here, there's something that is really nice for people with low vision. You'll notice that all these settings, straight up and down, you can see them right in a vertical row. So they're easy to see when they're magnified. So I'm going to ask Hector to click on this breadcrumb for accessibility because we can use a keyboard or we can click on accessibility, and that will allow us to navigate the various accessibility options. And again, notice how there's this vertical design. So people with low vision can just magnify in and all of it's still inside of your screen. There might be things, by the way, that you may not know about in terms of what was in later versions of Windows 10. And one of them is the magnifier. And so magnifier does exactly what you would expect. It magnifies, but you may not know that it also reads. And we've kept that functionality inside of Windows 11. So Hector's going to turn on magnifier, which is you're going to see a magnified screen. And he's going to read just part of the settings by doing a Control left click.
Start, pause, and resume reading. Reading shortcut plus enter stop reading, any key.
Now what just happened is Hector literally found the place he wanted to start on that page, clicked it, it highlighted it, and magnifier tracked that each word and moved the magnified viewport as it was speaking. Additionally, this also shows how easy these settings are, because if you wanted to know all of the reading keys that are available for magnifier, they're listed right there. The same is true for being able to find out, like, how do I zoom in or how do I zoom out? You know, we've got the information so that you don't necessarily need to go back and refer to a manual. And I know related settings is really cool as well. Each of the settings inside of accessibility and other settings has a related settings page. So for example, there used to be inside of ease of access an item called display. And what we found was that people were going to display and they're like, well, I want to change my resolution here, but it's not here. And so there was this gratuitous redundancy because we had multiple display pages. And in this instance, what we've done under related settings is maybe it's you don't see display in ease of access, you now see text size and visual effects. You might go in there looking for display, and guess what? It's right there. So you can click on display and go to the page that allows you to actually change the resolution of the screen. makes it very nice and easy to be able to find all of those related settings. So we're going to change back to our regular font size, and we're going to go back to accessibility. One other thing I want to point out once we go back to accessibility is we're going to look real quick at the mouse pointer, for example. So we're going to click on the mouse pointer.
I'm a bit behind you, Jeremy. I just wanted to just reinforce what you're saying about the discoverability of related settings. You know, it's people don't intuitively know where things are, and don't intuitively when they recognize a need for accessibility settings, especially when we're thinking about work coaches, and workplace adjustment professionals. You know, this concept of related settings allows them to kind of work through a list and consider every related option. I think this is going to have a massive impact out there. So yeah, I think we're definitely on the right track with this. Right, mouse pointers.
And then mouse pointer, we've been able to change the size and color of mouse pointer for a long time. But if you look at this page, like there's now what we call a hero control at the top. And it makes it very easy to distinguish, oh, what can I do with my mouse pointer? I can change the size, I can change the color. This is a very popular feature. Again, not even necessarily that people that would use accessibility, but some people just like to customize it. But maybe you want your mouse pointer to be pink, and you can change it to pink if you want to. It's really cool. Again, very inclusive. Now let's talk about one of the items that we spent a whole lot of time on, accessibility. So we're going to go back to the accessibility menu. And once we're there, I mentioned the item called contrast themes. So contrast themes is the replacement or rebranding of high contrast. Now, for those of you who may have used high contrast in the past, when you went to this page, the first thing that you had to do to figure out which one you wanted to use was select it and apply it across the system. What that meant is if you pick something like high contrast white, and you're someone like me who's light sensitive, you get blinded, like literally physical pain. And so we have actually changed this design. So you can see all 4 of these new aesthetically pleasing designs that we have without actually starting one. One's called aquatic, one's desert, one is called dusk, and the other one is called night sky. Again, these very calming names. And if we select one in the combo box inside of this particular page, we can select it and it doesn't apply until we click apply. So if we maybe accidentally clicked on desert, for example, and we thought, oh no, I don't want that one because it's going to be white, I don't have to worry about getting blinded by a whole bunch of light coming to my eyes. So Hector's clicked aquatic and he's going to select apply. Once he selects apply, it's going to apply this contrast theme across all of Windows. You'll see that please wait screen curtain, very similar to what we did with the text size. And now this is the new contrast theme. Compared to high contrast, it's night and day difference. As you heard in the video, we got reports from customers who'd say, well, high contrast is like a hammer. Like it's just either one thing or another. It's very hard then to discern whatever it is. And we don't have that anymore. It's just a nice, aesthetically pleasing a scheme. And so if you're using a PC, then you can look just like anybody else using a PC. You don't have to worry about things looking so stigmatizing. Hector's brought the calculator up here. And one of the pieces of feedback that we often heard from customers is the ability to distinguish windows. And he's moving his mouse pointer around to the various borders on the calculator, because for people like myself, I don't have any depth perception or hardly any depth perception. And I can't tell the difference between this window and the other window. But now with these new contrast themes, we've ensured that we have the borders to a point where you can actually distinguish, oh, I'm on the calculator instead of on the thing behind it, or whatever window you're happening to use. It's very cool. And if you look at the icons down in the taskbar, it used to be that some of these icons would change into something completely different. So maybe you were used to clicking on Edge to open up the internet. Well, you might not recognize the icon. And now the icon is identical to what a person who is sighted would see. So it doesn't feel or look different. Not only that, but we found that when you change the look of icons, people don't understand them in the same way. They don't make sense. It's just completely a different feeling, or not even a feeling, but just like a different object to them. And so we kept these colors down at the bottom. And Hector, I know one of your favorite things to do is you like to customize stuff.
This is an in-joke, Jeremy. I think what Jeremy's saying is, as we've rehearsed me practicing this, I am incapable of choosing a nice color to demonstrate how you can edit this. So I'm going to have one more go for you, Jeremy. So I'm going to go in and edit and choose a slightly green, a very green, nice dark green color for the background color to essentially edit these color options.
Yeah,
so there you go.
I like this one. I like this one. So yeah, and we Hector changed the background by clicking on the edit button inside of there. And then you can change the background, you can change the color of text and hyperlink and inactive text and others. And so if he wanted to save this one, for example, he can click Save As, and he can give this one a name. So what are we calling this one, Hector?
We're calling this one Forest.
Okay, beautiful. So this one's called Forest, that Hector just made up. And he can save it. And once he saves it, it'll actually show up in the list so that you'll see the 4 default themes that are there inside of the combo box. And he'll see his new forest, which is cool. Also, if you're someone who has customized high contrast in the past and you upgrade to Windows 11, you'll still keep and retain that customization. If you have selected something like high contrast white or high contrast black, then you'll be upgraded to these new, very beautiful themes. And you can also delete them as well. I want to note that you see the background here is green. And if you look over on the left-hand side, there are other items that are available. And we really changed a lot underneath of the hood of Windows to be able to make sure that when you customize things, they show up in a way that's pleasing, and it makes the color story more consistent for the user. Again, a vast improvement over top of what we had inside of high contrast. Let's go ahead and change it back to none.
I just want to say as well, Jeremy, while that changes back, one of the things I'm saying to all of the workplace adjustment professionals and accessibility leads in the businesses and the employers, schools, universities that I'm talking to already about this is test it. You know, go and use the contrast themes for a day. I have done this, and honestly, I think previously in Windows 10, if you'd asked me to spend a day in high contrast, that would have felt like a challenge for me to kind of visually, accept that for a day. Genuinely, I have spent my day in dusk and aquatic on 2 different separate days, and it was just a beautiful, delightful experience. So, I mean, amazing job on this, Jeremy. You really did a great job.
All the props to the team. This is the designers you saw in the video. Wow, it was just a huge team effort in engineering. It was just humbling experience to be part of this. But not only have we made some changes with vision, but Hector, we made some changes with some of the hearing stuff too, correct?
Yeah. So again, just going back to this kind of concept of beauty, when we think about and preview, so beauty and preview, when you think about changing your default caption view across the whole of Windows, so through the video player, through the captions that you see in PowerPoint videos, etc. What you want is you want to test these things, and people design their captions for lots of different design decisions. So if you're putting on an event, you might want something just as a catch-all to be very high contrast. So you choose something that's very visually clear. So you'll notice now we have yellow on blue, white on black as great high contrast options within the captions. But what we also know is that many people who rely on captions, people who rely on captions, they also want to just create something that's personal to them and maybe, subtle. So maybe they just want to have sort of subtle captions, especially when they're, sharing them, looking at them in lectures or in work meetings. They don't necessarily want their captions to be distracting, depending on the workplace that you work in. So the fact that you can now change them now and get this really nice, I know you love this video, Jeremy, you say it every time we see it, but this beautiful, calming video with the captions playing, I think this is a great improvement.
Yeah, everything about Windows 11 is calming and soothing, right? And I think this is a person walking with the surfboard in their left hand along the side of a beach at a sunset. Like, I want to be there right now.
You love it. I think that's amazing. So yeah, so again, just in terms of the design aesthetic, super simple to find. It's one of those things that people didn't always go in and edit, but now it's really easy to find, and you've got some really beautiful options available to you. So next, we're going to turn to mobility.
Yeah, so mobility's got some great advantages. And again, thinking inclusively across the board, we've got something new inside of Windows 11 called snap groups. Snap grids. So these snap grids, when you hover over the restore button with your mouse, or if you're a keyboard user, Windows key and the letter Z. How do you say that in British English?
You say Z. You say Z in England. Windows key Z.
Windows key Z. So you can use Windows key Z, and you can arrow around back and forth, and you can set these different types of snap grids. Now, you may have been familiar with like pressing Windows key left arrow to put an app on the left or app on the right with Windows key right arrow. But now it's so much easier because you can just go and you can click one of these snap grids, and it automatically puts something on the left or right, or there's several different patterns that are already there by default. And let's suppose that you work in this area a lot. I think Hector's got accessibility settings and Edge up right now. And maybe you go off and do something else. You go to the desktop, or you go into a Word document, or you're going somewhere else, and you want to come back to that. Well, rather than having to like select each app, you can do this with the keyboard or mouse via the taskbar. And Hector's going to hover over top of where he was inside of the edge there. And once he does, he's going to actually see that there's a snap group there. And so it's going to open up the group where he had the internet as well as the accessibility items without having to go back and select each app. It's very cool stuff.
Yeah, it's not showing up for some reason at the moment, Jeremy, but essentially it is there. Yeah, sorry. For some reason, it's not showing up. Sorry about that.
Okay, no worries.
Okay.
Go ahead, Hector.
Yeah, so I also think just that it's one of those features that wasn't always understood. It goes to this discoverability again. So the fact that whenever you hover over a maximized window, that you get this option, it will beg questions. People will ask questions of it. What is that? And then they'll click the button, and then they will select it. So again, it goes to that concept of heightened discoverability once again. I mean, I'm the sort of person who always optimized my available screen as much as possible. So I knew about those features, I knew about those keyboard shortcuts, but we got to move into a world where we assume people don't know these. So we constantly work on that discoverability. And one top tip here, if you're using multiple monitors and you unplug your monitor, one of the things that people will do is they will move between different monitors. As you plug your monitor back in, it will remember the locations of those windows and park them back up on your second monitor when you dock, which is a really cool setting.
Yeah, and I love the fact that we gave keyboard access to this too. Because it appears in the upper right, and having to maximize stuff, you might have to open up a different menu. We've got a hotkey that goes right to it. It's just, again, so well inclusively designed.
Very cool.
We also have new touch keyboards as well. And so these touch keyboards, there are different types of them. We have a dark mode on, but if we go into settings, we'll be able to take a look at the various different types of keyboards that they are. So you heard Julia mention this in her in the video, and you can see there's just, I think she calls them fun, which I think too. They're just fun colors that you can change, and you can select the type of keyboard that you want and the type of color scheme that you want inside of here, which is really cool. And then Hector, also, if you expand that keyboard, there's some emoticons or something in there too, right?
Yeah, so when you go into the emojis, you've also got heightened discoverability of the GIFs. Some people say GIFs, I heard, but it's GIFs. But you also have this clipboard history built in. So essentially, anything that you've, what we would normally have been Windows key V for clipboard history is now extra discoverable here in the touch keyboard. So when we think about the experience of somebody who's using a touchscreen only, and they don't want to be switching constantly between windows and going and doing recopy and repaste, all of this is available right there in the touch keyboard. So this multimodal approach, this idea that some people are using keyboard and mouse, some people are using touch keyboard, they've really thought to kind of augment that touch keyboard. And one of the coolest augmentations is, of course, the new voice typing, right, Jeremy?
Oh, this has got to be like one of my most favorite features of Windows 11. So there's a voice typing button on the keyboard that you could do via touch. And let's, Hector, let's try one without the punctuation so we can see what it looks like. And then we'll talk about something called auto punctuation.
Yeah, so I've triggered the touch keyboard now, and you'll see straight away it's using web connected speech to text, and straight away we're pumping tons of text right here into this sticky note.
So you've got a sticky note application up, and then what we're seeing is, correct me if I'm wrong, but a gigantic run-on sentence with no punctuation, as if you just settled that just thing. Yeah.
That's exactly right. So I'll start it again. So you can see it's almost what we would call almost like stream of consciousness typing. One of the things you might realize here is that I'm just not changing the way that I speak. I'm just pumping text out here, and straight away it's keeping up with me. And then as I pause, here it will all appear straight on the screen.
Yeah. So now this new voice typing has the ability to auto punctuate. So no longer do you have to say, hi, comma, my name is Jeremy, period, it, apostrophe S, nice to meet you, those types of things. So we're going to turn on auto punctuation. Give us a go here, Hector.
Okay, so I'm back into my touch keyboard. I'm turning on the auto punctuation here in the settings menu, and let's go back into touch keyboard, sorry, and start again. So here I am, I'm doing exactly the same thing. I'm typing directly into my sticky note using my voice, but this time it's going to be using some punctuation. And so if I was to ask it a question, hey Jeremy, how are you doing today? Then I will see that it auto punctuates for me, as well as allowing me to use some commands. Commands might include something like new line. And it will jump to the new line and allow me to continue typing. So this really intelligent, default, standard, discoverable voice typing option, I think is going to be a major step forward for many, many different types of users. It also takes us into kind of, that multi-user experience, or different people using things for different reasons. So the other people who would benefit from voice typing would, of course, be people with dyslexia, people with cognitive disabilities. And so this is something we should continue to talk about. Of course, the touch keyboard is not going to be where everybody wants to experience voice typing. So I'm going to pause this, come out of here. I think what I'll do is I'll just delete all of this text for a moment, and I'm going to hit Windows key H. Now, Windows key H is always available voice typing. So this could be used absolutely anywhere, and a keyboard user would be able to access just as much as anybody else. Windows key H is the key pressed to invoke voice typing. That's always been there since Windows 10, but there's a massive step up in quality now.
Yeah, and I really like the way that it's able to intelligently determine homophones, right? Like it's versus its. You could have IT apostrophe S versus ITS. And for people not only who have dyslexia, but for someone like me, if I'm just using my eyes, I'll miss that apostrophe sometimes because my eyes, they skip things because there's like blind spots that I can't see. And so using this, it really increased my efficiency because I can talk to it and I don't really have to worry as much about me mistyping something. I know that sounds weird, but I think I've started to switch to this more than I have actually using my hands to type out things. It's just very awesome.
I use it all the time now. I'm using it for messages in Teams, in the Teams chat, when I just, it doesn't really matter about my accuracy. I just pump those messages into Teams. I'm using it to add alt text on images all the time, and I know that it's going to have proper grammar now, whereas I might, if I'm honest, have let that slip in the past. There's all these kind of great applications. The other great one is adding notes to PowerPoint, sharing slides with great script associated with them. That natural experience of you almost kind of practicing your speech in your PowerPoint slides and knowing that it's going to be nicely presented, that's going to be a huge step forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm a bit conscious of time, Jeremy. So I think what we want to do here is we've got a video to share which shows some of this new multimodal approach and how this might be really the first version of Windows where that idea of touch, that idea of voice and keyboard and mouse becomes almost like taken to the next level. Let's run VT.
Jane.
I love the idea of a person interacting with a device, and then we are kind of in the middle to make that experience more efficient.
Julia.
Our historical inputs are mouse and keyboard, and Windows is really great at that. It's really great at your desk productivity.
Juan.
Let's start inviting other input experiences to the table.
Making touch a great experience, voice a great experience.
What feels natural?
Hadley.
When something feels natural, it's easier.
Liz.
People's usage habits have changed. They may be working from the dining room table, from their couches, from their beds.
Detaching a type
Windows
cover.
used to have something called Windows Tablet Mode, but it was a really hard shift.
Ashley.
We looked at making that a smoother experience when you transition, including adding animation.
Task icons expand.
And now it's the same Windows. Every touch interaction will work on your laptop, whether or not the screen detaches.
A tape measure.
The thing that I've been focused a lot on is making a great touch typing experience. We improved the scaling logic, the way that it looked, the way that you can get between layouts. Up until now, somebody could only have a dark or light theme keyboard. We wanted to create some themes so this could be a place that users could express themselves. It feels fun.
A colorful on-screen keyboard.
Voice typing is the new and improved version of Windows 10 dictation.
Speech recognition technology has been improved.
Another really cool added feature is auto punctuation. You don't have to literally say period or question mark.
I can walk around the room. I don't know, I feel like a better writer.
It's been really helpful to stay closer to my parents because I'm not necessarily good at writing in Korean.
Korean characters.
Automatically dictate and write it in a way that my parents can understand.
Not everyone knows about it, but when people find out, it's one of those features where they're like, where was this my whole life? I wish I had this in college.
Speakers grin.
I don't know, I guess I would just say, let's give it a try. You might find that you'll find your true self in it.
Hadley smiles brightly. Windows. Microsoft.
The thing that I really get from that video is that essentially everybody benefits from accessibility features. This again is going to help us with this concept of discoverability, non-stigmatizing, just features that routinely empower everybody. And when I hear people talking so confidently about this multimodal approach to input on a computer, I just know that we're, on the right track here. We're going to continue to see investments in this space, and we're going to continue to see people almost like rethinking the way that we approach technology. We're back in Edge here now, so if I can just screen share this with you. Just want to quickly talk a little bit more about cognitive disabilities and different viewing styles in Edge. Whenever we talk about Windows, we like to talk about Edge as well. People are going to be going in here as their kind of default browser in Windows. The reading mode that's available in Edge, the immersive reader, is something that many people maybe didn't always pick up on or haven't discovered yet. We talk a lot about it in the education space, but we don't necessarily always talk about it elsewhere. But here in Edge, we have this view available, which allows people to change their color preferences. They can have stuff read aloud with these beautiful neural TTS voices in multiple languages. There's a new option here, as well as the Erlang colors for dyslexia or colors for low vision, the black on yellow here or the white on black. We also have these new column styles, wide, medium, and narrow reading views. So the fact that we're kind of just increasing these accessibility options that people see and find straight away in Edge, I think that's fantastic. The other thing that Jeremiah just discovered literally today, so hot off the press, is a new option in Edge to add a high contrast view. So can you see this box, or I'm showing here, when I click on any icon in Edge or any clickable button in Edge, I get that border around it happens. So
that happens when you use the keyboard. Sorry, that happens when you use the keyboard then too, Hector?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So if I tab around this screen, what we're seeing is this high-vis box added in Edge for any clickable content.
That
brand new,
that's
right?
Huge. Yeah, just huge. Because you can see like focus rectangles before, but this rectangle is so easy to see, and yeah, what an awesome feature.
it's quite difficult to keep up sometimes, right, Jeremy? These things kind of just keep getting added. Do always keep an eye on the roadmap, the Microsoft roadmap, the M365 roadmap, to make sure that you're seeing some of these things up front and letting them know that they're coming to you. You've got to constantly work hard to keep up with the pace that the accessibility features are arriving right now. Certainly in my 5 years at Microsoft, it's just been been thick and fast, right, Jeremy?
Yeah, and speaking of pace, like, one of the things that we've thought a lot about in the whole world over the past year and a half is mental health, right? And there are some new features that can really help mental health as well.
Yeah, and you know what? We didn't used to talk about accessibility and mental health always. Yeah, we used to talk about vision, hearing, mobility, but actually, when we think about mental health, this is like, especially at this time in human history, it's really on the rise in terms of people talking about mental health and talking about their mental health disabilities. So to start to see some of it being represented in product, is again super interesting for all of us, something for us all to consider. Here in the clock in Windows 11, we have these new focus sessions.
The last slide before we go to Q&A.
The focus sessions are essentially time for you to kind of almost create like mindfulness moments when using Windows. So if you're looking to kind of go into a period of focus and to monitor the amount of focus that you get through a week, as well as quickly linking to your to-do list, so you can quickly just clear things off your list, and to link into your Spotify playlists and some curated focus playlists offered to you through Windows. There's this added dimension to accessibility is how I would describe it. So you can reflect on a week, how many days during that week you managed to grab yourself some focus time. So regardless of where you're kind of thinking in the disability space and the accessibility space, please, as you deploy Windows 11, take a moment to also think about mental health and maybe how you can use that as a conversation starter for accessibility in any workplace. For years, Jeremy, for the last few years, I've been using color blindness filters as a way to start the conversation with anybody. Yeah, because everybody recognizes that there's lots of people out there. 1 in 12 of the Caucasian male population has color blindness. So it's a topic that gets wider buy-in potentially. I think mental health might be that one that we start conversations with around accessibility now, and I think that we should embrace that as the accessibility community.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a great segue to accessibility. And for me, like, I used to, let's say I always have a ton of meetings, and I shouldn't have a contest with myself to see if I can have the most meetings each week, but I think sometimes I would do that. And with this, I can actually kind of feel rewarded, like, oh, I had 3 or 4 focus times, and it not only helps with the focus, but at the end of the week, it just makes me feel good, right?
Yeah.
So that whole calm and ease thing coming back again, but being able to use this as a transition into accessibility. And as you've seen with this most inclusively designed version of Windows, this is just something that we've taken throughout all of Windows, right? Not just a small part. You're seeing it in Office, you're seeing it in Edge, you're seeing it inside of little apps. It's really, really awesome to see this. Literally the most inclusively designed version of Windows.
Great way to wrap, Jeremy. Look, it's been brilliant to spend an hour with you. In fact, it's been brilliant to spend like a number of hours with you, kind of practicing and preparing for this. It's just so good to hear the insight, from the process that you went through. So, it's been a privilege. Thanks so much for spending time with me. I think we need to get you out on the road more with me in the future. Yeah,
I'm ready to fly again.
Okay, super. But with that, thanks so much for being my co-host. And back to you, Crystal.
This is awesome. Thanks, Hector. Thanks, Jeremy. I'm just so thrilled that we recorded this today. There was just such a ton of good information in there. So just for anybody, if you missed any part of it, just know we will definitely be sharing out just like we do with our other webinars in the past. So we definitely have captured the recording here, and we'll be making that available in a few weeks. This is great, you guys. Thank you so much. I do want to get to some questions. So if you have questions out there, I'm going to give out the email and the Twitter again. I sound like a strong Twitter user by using the word the Twitter. But Yes, the email address you can send your questions to us is AccessibilityWebinars. That's AccessibilityWebinars at Microsoft.com. One of my colleagues is watching the inbox right now. And then you can also use the hashtag AccessibilityWebinar on Twitter, and we will grab those questions off of Twitter as well. But let me go ahead and jump in. We've got one already, and I know this is probably on a lot of folks' minds. So this is just a great one to start with. What, will Windows 11, when I upgrade, will I need to upgrade my assistive technology or screen reader? I think we've seen this question come in a few different ways, but will I need to upgrade? I know myself, speaking for myself, that I've been on Windows 11 Insider for a little bit. I'm using JAWS 2021. There are new JAWS updates, so I'm actually planning to update that machine to JAWS 2022 here in the next day or two. So I know both of those are working, but I know we got a lot of folks out there on different versions of AT, all different kinds of products out there. So I don't know, Jeremy or Hector, if you have thoughts on some best advice there.
Yeah, as you mentioned, there's all sorts of different types of assistive technologies out there, right? And by the way, one of the things that we didn't touch too much on today is screen readers, and shameless plug, that's because our next webinar is about screen readers, specifically with Windows 11. But Crystal mentioned like JAWS and Zoom Text. They came out with an update recently for Windows 11. NVDA has an update for Windows 11. It really depends on the assistive technologies that you're using. And what we encourage you to do is reach out to your manufacturer and find out if it's an upgrade that you need, whether it's a paid-for upgrade or otherwise. But that's really the best place to find that information is directly from the manufacturer, because we work really, really close with our assistive technology partners to try and make sure that everyone has the best access to Windows.
Great. Thanks, Jeremy. I've got another question here. I know you covered this, but I think it's a really important one to make sure we just cover again since it's coming in. And I actually know we've had some customers reach out to Dad about this as well. So folks are just wondering again, where are ease of access settings? So could you just clarify again how to find the settings that folks were accustomed to using in Win 10?
Yeah, sure. So like we mentioned, ease of access has been rebranded as accessibility. So if you press Windows key and the letter U, it's going to take you there. If you do a Windows search for accessibility, you will find some accessibility options there. It'll probably take you directly to something like keyboard, but using those breadcrumbs we showed you earlier, you can navigate back to the main accessibility page. But if you search for ease of access, again, it wasn't findable or discoverable by people before. And so accessibility is really the key to being able to find what those options that you're so familiar with.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm really hoping, sorry, it's Hector here. I'm really hoping that discoverability isn't the issue moving forward. It's like maybe I've just got an eye for it, but you just can't miss accessibility now on Windows 11. It's really right there, front and center.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know, Jeremy, you mentioned we'll be doing another webinar specifically for screen reader users and the keyboard changes there. But there's a lot that hasn't changed. That Windows U, I still use that today in Win 11. It worked in Win 10. Things, if you want to get to specific settings, it definitely still works. So that's good. I've got another question here from Twitter. And this is about, so the sounds in Windows 11, they're saying, those are new sounds. Is there a way that I could switch back to Windows 10 if I did prefer those?
That's a great question. I suppose there probably is a way to revert back to Windows 10. One of the avenues that we have available for support like that is the Disability Answer Desk. And so if you've got questions on your specific system and what you need to go back to, or just questions about accessibility in general, that's a great resource to go to. And you can find more information about it at aka.ms/dad, D-A-D, aka.ms/DAD. It's a really wonderful resource. If you're an enterprise customer and you have questions like that, we have something called EDAD, which is what I'm on now, Enterprise Disability Answer Desk, which is at aka.ms/EDAD. And we're certainly more than willing to help you there. But those are things I would reach out specifically to the Disability Answer Desk for.
Thank you. I want to jump and get to a couple more questions here before we run out of time. I know we had one come into email asking if you know if there have been any major changes to narrator from Windows 10 to Windows 11.
There have been changes to narrator. Some of them are very cool, such as the ability to run what we call remote. We call them Rail apps. That the acronym is for the letters to the acronym are escaping me, but remote applications integrated locally is what it is. And so for those of you who are in enterprise and want to be able to run a screen reader in a certain app across basically cloud, it makes it so much better. And I would really encourage you to check out the next webinar, because they'll talk about the various things with narrator as well as other screen readers. And additionally, if you want to give any feedback, the way that you can get it directly to the team is you can press Windows key F, that's Windows key Foxtrot, and that'll open up the Windows Feedback Hub. And you can give feedback directly about accessibility or whatever app you're in. And that will literally go to the product team. When I was on the product team, we would actually review those almost every day and look at the feedback coming in and seeing what the trends were. So Windows key F is a great way to provide feedback, whether it's feature requests that you want to see, or if you've got other feedback about how you like things in Windows 11. It's a great place to be able to send that feedback. So we strongly encourage you to use the Feedback Hub with Windows key F.
Excellent. That's a great tip, Jeremy. I've got another question from Twitter. Will any of the features that are specific to Windows 11 be backported to Windows 10? I guess you guys did some good demos here.
I guess it depends on what features they're talking about. Contrast themes will be Windows 11 and forward, because there's a whole bunch of stuff we had to change under the hood. As far as I know, voice typing is Windows 11 and forward, but I could be wrong. Do you know, Hector?
Yeah, that's correct. One thing I would just maybe say on this is that some of the things that we showed you today, so like the read aloud on Magnify, are things that came in Windows 10. So some of the things that we showed you tonight, check, that they're not already on your system. But most of the things that we showed you today are brand new to Windows 11 and are only forward compatible.
Awesome. Well, thank you both again. We're going to go ahead and wrap. I know we're at the hour, and I'm sure folks have got to drop for other things out there. But just thank you again, Hector and Jeremy. Really appreciate the time you took today to demo these features in Windows 11. I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up, and I just want to say thank you to everybody out there for listening and giving us your feedback and sending in questions. We really do appreciate it. If there's something you really need support on, you need help, you've got more questions, please do not be afraid to reach out to us. You can check out your support options for your market if you go to, there's a short URL, aka.ms/DAD. So that's aka.ms/DAD, and that's where you can find out how you can contact the Disability Answer Desk in your market. So if you've got additional questions we didn't get to, please do reach out to us. We are ready and supporting Windows 11 along with Office and Windows 10. And then I just really want to remind folks too, we have a lot of other resources out there. Hector reminded me of one, that if you're just looking to kind of peruse some of the features that were discussed today and want to learn more, feel free to go to aka.ms/ACC features. So it's aka.ms/ACC features. And that'll take you to a site where we're describing a lot of the features in Windows and Office as well. And it's definitely updated with the new Windows 11 content there. And then finally, as we've already discussed, we have new webinars where we actually have one coming up in November. It'll be on November 17th. If you want to learn more about that, you can check our site out again at aka.ms/accessibilitywebinars. And that webinar in November, we've got a great lineup of presenters: Jeff Bishop, Ann Taylor, Brett Humphrey, who are going to, all screen reader users who are going to talk about using a screen reader on Windows 11. So that's going to be an exciting one. And then we're in the works trying to plan some more for the new year. So please stay tuned, and you can definitely get those updates there. So we will go ahead and sign off, and I just really appreciate everybody for listening in. Thanks. Have a good one.
Thanks, everybody.